my parents were the kind of like idyllic parents, and everyone would say like A, they're amazing parents, and B, they're just so in love. And all the other couples would want to be like my parents. And for, the first decade of my life, I definitely felt that and was, really grateful and felt very safe and supported. And then almost overnight, I think it was like 15 years old, my mom went downstairs. We were at the dinner table. It was me, my mom, my dad, my brother. My mom went downstairs and didn't really think anything of it. We were finishing up dinner, and then all of a sudden, we had a laundry room down there, and I heard like banging, slamming. She was slamming the top of the dryer down, and just screaming. And this had never happened in our house before. So my dad got up from the dinner table. He looked at my brother and me and said, "Stay here." He went downstairs. I immediately followed him. And then he was at the threshold of our laundry room, and my mom was just screaming, "I hate you," over and over again. My dad looked at me. He had tears in his eyes. And we never unpacked what happened. But what subsequently followed was my parents were what I thought, profoundly in love. And then they were overnight separated. So what happened before that incident was I never experienced conflict. Everything was good. And then what happened after that was I never experienced conflict. Everything was off. So when I started my first business, it was at a point, it was an inflection point, and it was failing. And I was in a mediator's office with my business partner, and she asked me, how did you learn conflict? And I didn't even know what that question meant. And then she continued, like, what did you experience when you were a child around conflict? And everything connected with me in that I didn't. I learned that either everything was okay, or if you had conflict, it would ruin everything that you cared about. Now, that's not a rational story. That's obviously not true and doesn't make any sense unless you're me in that situation, and it makes perfect sense. So the story I learned in that moment when I was 15 was avoid conflict at all costs, because you will lose the thing that you care most about. So what happened was I avoided conflict at all costs, and I continued to lose the most important things in my life: relationships, the business. And in that moment, it was an inflection point to me that helped me understand, unless I go back and I acknowledge the way that I learned conflict is not of service. I need a new story. I need a new belief schema. And then I started repatterning that. And that led me to a deep dive that guided my path in the subsequent 10 years since that last business failed, about being curious around conflict. And what I've discovered over the past 10 years has not only like changed and evolved my life and my comprehensive definition of success, but many others that I work with. And it's a really powerful kind of sacred work that we can do. It's really hard, but it's really liberating at the same time.
It's so interesting, and I'm gonna be honest. Like I got a little emotional. I tried to like not get teary, but when you were telling that story, because it resonated with me, and it brought me back. Very similar pattern, because growing up it was me and my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Thought I had the perfect family, perfect parents. Because all you know as a kid is what you see.
That's right.
And your contextual framework at that point is your friends. My parents, they never fought. They never raised their voice. Maybe my mom raised my voice at me because I'm just wired differently. But between my parents, I never really saw any conflict whatsoever until I was 18. And whenever I was 18, my mom had been going to therapy and came across a letter from doing some therapy writing. Found out my dad had an affair. And that was when, and had an affair when she was pregnant with me. So I'm 18 years old, senior in high school. And it was like my entire narrative was just completely shattered in an instant.
That's right.
But even through their experience, never saw conflict. But then I started to question. It was like, well, what's the story behind the story? What is it that I can't see? What is it that I don't know? Like all of these things that are happening, more probably subconsciously than anything.
Oh yeah, way more subconsciously, and that's the thing.
Yeah, and ended up putting a hole in the wall in the family room.
Yeah.
You know, with all of this, and that was just a real rough period of time. And you know, my parents were going through therapy and they had reconciled and whatnot, but it was just, I didn't have a model for conflict resolution myself either. I was very confused. And so anytime conflict would come, it was like it was this avoidance thing.
Right.
And so as I started my entrepreneurial journey, it's like, and I started to grow my team 15, 20 years ago. Like, and we were growing very quickly, but I was probably more paying for friends, and for affirmation and for things that I was missing and longing for, than making the hard choices, the hard decisions, having the hard conversations that really needed to happen. It took actually my wife confronting me and saying it's the business or the family. And it was funny too, when we got married, like my wife is Lebanese and grew up in an entrepreneurial home, very loud, a lot of conflict, but a lot of conflict resolution. And even when my wife and I were going through marriage preparation, there was a whole session around conflict resolution. It's like, you get it academically, you get it theoretically, but then to put it into practice. So I feel you on this. If you want to keep learning from videos like this one, I recommend you check out this video right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast conversation, you can click here.